Before we get going, we're giving away a $50 Amazon gift card to a subscriber that comments on this video, and for at least a while, we're going to be doing it on every video. So subscribe and comment on all of them. We're living in a golden age of superhero movies. Some say there's too many of them, but they're usually pretty good, so it's hard to be too upset. But for every Thor Ragnarok, there's a Justice League. Some fail to live up to their expectations at the box office, and some just aren't up to snuff. I'm Falcon, and today on Waste Time, 10 of the most disappointing superhero movies. Number 10 is Dredd. Now, all three people who saw Dredd in the theater know it's a great movie. Is it perfect? No, but it received good reviews, a 78 on Rotten Tomatoes, which is pretty good, actually a little bit lower than I think the quality of the film is itself. And it was certainly better than the original attempt at it, Judge Dredd, starring Sylvester Stallone. Lena Headey is the villain, a crime lord, actually a pretty inspired casting decision, and structuring it kinda like a roguelike video game with a 200-story tower he has to fight his way to works pretty well. Despite good reviews and being a quality film though, it just didn't make any money. It made about $30 million total and needed to make about $40 million for a sequel to happen, and unfortunately, well, 30 isn't 40. But it looks like there's going to be a Netflix series starring Karl Urban, the star of the movie, so there may yet be a future. Number 9 is Green Lantern, which the absolute failure of 2011's Green Lantern is most likely why Green Lantern isn't exactly showing up in the DCEU. Apparently Ryan Reynolds as the Green Lantern and a $20 million budget really just isn't enough. They only made $220 million, which, if you consider the advertising budget being somewhere around half of the full budget, most likely left the movie way in the red. The thing that people remember most from this movie is the fact that Ryan Reynolds has a CGI costume, and it looked very bad. And I'm sure it's not Ryan Reynolds' fault, but it was a bad movie, too. It was also the first major production to have the Green Lantern in it, as well as probably the introduction to most people who saw it of the character itself. It made no money and a lot of people hated the movie. But fans of the character don't get too down. It seems like they are working on a movie entitled Green Lantern Corps that's supposedly going to release in 2020, and it could be good because I would hope that they learned something from the last one. Number 8 is Kick-Ass 2, a sequel to, frankly, a great movie. It's most likely the reason why movies like Deadpool and Logan got made, because the cursing of it, the darker aesthetic despite the goofier costumes, didn't deter people from seeing it. It was a success both in the box office and critically speaking. But while the sequel wasn't horrible, the fact that it was mediocre made it seem horrible because a lot of us were really hoping it would even happen because the first one was great. That's kind of the nature of disappointment. And they literally have no plans for future installments in the franchise, effectively killing it. They incorrectly assume that the reason the first one was a success was that it had a lot of shock content in it, when no, it was actually because it was a well-constructed movie. They leaned into the shock, which after once people are pretty much desensitized to, and the second movie, which needed to grow as a film, didn't, which sucks. Number 7 is Hulk, which, let's just be honest, probably one of the best superheroes. Is he one of the most serious? No, but really a fun hero. In 2003, a movie was made about the Hulk by a talented director by the name of Ang Lee. Good cast, Eric Bana, Jennifer Connelly, and a pretty good budget for the time, $137 million. Obviously, that is dwarfed by what they put into a Marvel movie now, but you'd think with all that money, it would be more than just a lot of introspection. And don't get me wrong, a Hulk movie is gonna need introspection to be good, but the Hulk is also a big green man that smashes things. To not lean into that at any point in the film, except for one admittedly pretty cool sequence that does still have its problems, pretty much didn't do very well. And they didn't even try to make another Incredible Hulk until 2008. 5 years later. That Hulk was not bad, but the current iteration of the character is probably the best one. And unfortunately, Marvel and Disney can't even make their own Hulk movie. Universal owns the rights, so, I mean, it could be for the best. As a secondary role, he does focus on the things that we like about the Hulk, which is him smashing things, but still. Number 6 is Iron Man 2, which, let's be honest, even though there are some kind of repetitive movies, the MCU has put out a lot more good movies than bad ones. After 2008's Iron Man kicked off the whole MCU thing with a massive bang. Everyone was waiting with bated breath for for Iron Man 2. And what we got was kind of exposition for the Avengers. And that's it. That's pretty much what Iron Man 2 is. Nothing that really happened in that movie was that impressive. It certainly didn't utilize Tony Stark to the amount that it should have. And let's not even talk about the wasted potential of Whiplash, who looks like a cool villain, had a great actor playing him, and Iron Man 3 had some stuff wrong with it, but I was much more disappointed by Iron Man 2. Number 5 was Spawn. Way back in 1997, there were really just not that many superhero movies that were big. The only successful ones had Batman or Superman in it, and some movie producers were looking to change the tide. A much darker comic book that had debuted in 1992, called Spawn, made by Todd McFarlane, was developed into an origin story for the superhero, and it's okay. Like, it's a quintessential 90s movie, except for they go for the Spawn aesthetic, which if you've seen the comic book, is in some ways very much a 90s comic book, but in other ways, it's a very cool 90s comic book. Like, it was at least original, and that's also partly why I can't bring myself to hate the movie. It's at least trying something new. But even despite that, it was a disappointment. Not just in the overall quality of the film, but it didn't make a lot of money. Supposedly, Todd McFarlane is set to direct a new Spawn movie that was announced at Comic-Con by Blumhouse Productions, the Insidious, Purge, Paranormal Activity studio, and that may be really cool on account it's the actual creator directing it. We haven't actually seen that in any superhero movie. So let's cross our fingers that does happen and ends up better than Spawn 1997. Number 4 is Hellboy 3, which is not a movie that exists. Keep that in mind. And that's the disappointing part about it. Guillermo del Toro was absolutely phenomenal at directing the first 2 Hellboy movies. They were such visually rich films, and Ron Perlman embodied the hero in a way that I suspect Sheriff Hopper might be able to bring some sort of charisma to, but it's not just Ron Perlman, and it's not just Guillermo del Toro. It's the fact that both of those elements are there. A fantastic performance paired with a visionary director. Unfortunately, the character of Hellboy, surprisingly enough, only has kind of niche appeal. Everyone who saw these movies loved the hell out of them, no pun intended, but oh boy, not enough of them came to see them. Neil Marshall is directing the reboot, and there's a decent chance it might fit in with a more modern audience. And like I said, Sheriff Hopper as Hellboy I think kind of works pretty good. I'll just always mourn the loss of Guillermo del Toro on that franchise. Number 3, Fantastic Four. As of now, we've had 4 Fantastic Four movies. I don't know what it is about Fantastic Four, but Fox just cannot figure out how to make a decent Fantastic Four movie. But they seem to make them just so Marvel doesn't get the rights back to them. Like, at least 2 of these movies were made simply because it had gone too long without making a Fantastic Four movie, and if they leave it inactive too long, the rights go back to Marvel. And these movies play exactly like that. Obligatory and joyless. Also, they keep doing origin stories, and I just don't want to see another Fantastic Four origin story. Think Spider-Man, but a much worse problem than Spider-Man. Hopefully Marvel manages to wrestle the rights away from Fox, because they just don't know what they're doing. They just stick to the R-rated stuff like Deadpool, Logan, and not try to do the goofier things like the team of superheroes that has a guy with rubber arms and a big rock man. Number 2 is Catwoman and Elektra, and yes, we're citing them both in one of these because they both have the distinction of being why it's very hard to get female-led superhero movies made. And trust me, it's not because we don't want these movies. It's because studio executives know just how bad Catwoman and Elektra are, and for whatever stupid reason is going on in their head, believe that any female-led superhero movie will be exactly the same. Now, Catwoman, I don't even know where to start with. I still don't understand what Catwoman is. I've seen the movie, and because I know what Catwoman is, I don't know what they're trying to do in that movie. It's that bad of a movie, it makes that little of sense. It's an origin story for a woman who was died and resurrected by a cat to have cat-like abilities, which is not what Catwoman is, but is apparently what this Catwoman is, who dresses like the other Catwoman, and might have something to do with the DC universe, and also might not. Nobody ever really makes it obvious or apparent. And Elektra was a spin-off of Ben Affleck as Daredevil, which, by the way, that movie wasn't good. No one cared about the characters in it. Why did they make a spin-off of it? It's another movie that is so bad I don't understand it, and it's very unfortunate because, like I said, these movies have made it very difficult for women to be in the lead role in a superhero movie for over a decade. Though I must say, fortunately, that has kind of changed with Wonder Woman. Still, it sucks that film executives can't think about what it's like when you do something that is good versus something that is bad, rather than man versus woman. It's make a good movie. It's easy. Well, maybe not easy, but it's definitely a challenge to make a movie as bad as these two. And finally, number 1, the DCEU so far, the DC Extended Universe, which has just been a big ol' pile of meh. We're 5 movies into the DCEU, and one of them has been good. And credit where credit is due, Wonder Woman was a risk, and it is a good movie. Is it the best superhero film I've ever seen? No, but it's well above average in the superhero realm, and the fact that somebody finally made a Wonder Woman movie with a massive amount of effort and studio backing to deliver a quality product, I mean, it was heartening. Definitely brought my mood up. That being said, the other 4 movies are Man of Steel, Batman vs. Superman, Suicide Squad, and Justice League. I don't really know where to start here. The 4 films I just listed are not good films. Not one of them is a good film. The best we get is not a total disaster in Justice League, which is really close to being a total disaster, but the last 20 minutes are pretty good. Somebody was like, oh hey, Superman should possibly be likable in this film. Probably Joss Whedon. But it just wasn't enough. It was the same kind of patched together mess that Suicide Squad was, if not a little bit better. Batman vs. Superman is not the same kind of patched together mess, just a regular mess. Badly written movie where none of the characters were understood, and Man of Steel is alright, I guess. It's certainly not as bad as any of the other films. These films make money, but they don't make people as happy as the MCU, which sucks because these characters are as iconic, as important to a lot of people. So maybe it'll get better, but even if it does, it's never going to be a consistent universe because it started off with 4 POS crap movies and 1 damn good movie that I think will probably end up with a sequel that's better than the first one. I'm talking about Wonder Woman. What superhero movie disappointed you the absolute worst? Leave us a comment, and if you enjoyed this video, please click like. If you're not subscribed, now would be a good time to do so. We make brand new videos all the time, and the best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription. As always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter @FalconTheHero, and we'll see you next time right here on Waste Time.